Did Rahu Mahadasha change your own life?
It changed everything, but destiny had only begun writing its story. Rahu is asking one question: what are you attached to? By the age of 16, I was living on the streets. I am not only going to speak about remedies, I am going to speak about something far deeper. So let us begin our journey. Namaste, my beloved friends. Today we are beginning something very special on this channel. But first, let me make one thing very clear. My original podcast format will continue as always. This new conversational podcast format is only an additional journey created especially to address those questions that many of you may have in your heart but may not know how to ask. In this series, I will be joined by Meera, an AI co-host, who will ask the questions that many sincere seekers silently carry within themselves. Questions about astrology, karma, spirituality, fear, healing, relationships, and the deeper meaning of life. So, Meera, welcome to this new journey.
Namaste, Acharya ji. I am truly honored to be here. And today's topic is one that creates fear in many hearts: Rahu Mahadasha. So let me begin with a simple question: is Rahu really our enemy? Or is there something deeper that most people misunderstand?
Namaste, Meera, and namaste to all my beloved friends. Before we enter into this topic, let me say one thing very clearly. Please don't listen to this podcast with fear. Listen with openness, because Rahu is not here only to frighten you. Rahu is here to make you aware, because the purpose of today's conversation is not to make you afraid of Rahu. It is to help you understand Rahu. Whenever there is understanding, fear disappears. Where there is ignorance, fear takes birth. And therefore, today I don't simply want to discuss Rahu Mahadasha. I want to discuss how to walk through Rahu Mahadasha. Because there is a huge difference. Many people spend 18 years of Rahu Mahadasha fighting Rahu. Very few learn to walk with awareness. And those who learn this come out as completely transformed human beings.
Acharya ji, before we go deeper, can I ask the most basic question? Suppose someone has never studied astrology before. What exactly is Rahu Mahadasha?
Beautiful question, Meera. Rahu Mahadasha is an 18-year planetary period in Vedic astrology. But please don't reduce it to merely 18 years on a calendar. That would be a mistake. Rahu Mahadasha is an 18-year classroom, an 18-year psychological transformation, an 18-year spiritual examination. Some people come out wiser, some come out bitter, some become saints, some become prisoners of their own desires. The Mahadesha itself is not deciding your destiny. Your consciousness decides how you experience it. That is why two people may undergo Rahu Mahadasha at the same time. One discovers God, the other destroys himself. The planet is the same, The difference lies within the individual.
That's fascinating. So, Rahu itself isn't necessarily the problem, it is our response to Rahu.
Exactly. People often ask me, Acharya ji, is Rahu bad? I smile. Fire is not bad. Water is not bad. Electricity is not bad. But they can either cook your food or burn your house. Everything depends upon your awareness. Exactly the same is true of Rahu.
Then why do so many people become frightened the moment they hear your Rahu Mahadasha has started? Why has Rahu developed such a fearful reputation?
Because people usually remember pain. Very few remember transformation. When Rahu enters life, it shakes the structure upon which your identity is built. Sometimes relationships, sometimes career, sometimes reputation, sometimes health, sometimes your own mind, and naturally people remember the shaking, but they forget what the shaking was trying to achieve. Rahu is asking one question: what are you attached to? Until that question is answered honestly, Rahu continues teaching.
Acharya may I ask something personal? Because I know many viewers know you as an astrologer, a teacher, an author, but very few know what you actually lived through. Did Rahu Mahadasha change your own life?
It changed everything, Mira. And that is exactly why I can speak about Rahu today. Not from theories, not from borrowed scriptures, not from Google knowledge. No, I speak from life, from pain, from storms that I have survived. My Rahu Mahadasha began when I was only 12 years old. By the time I was 14, my father had passed away. I had already lost my mother when I was 4 years old. Imagine that. Before most children are even learning about life, life had already taken away both of my parents. But destiny had only begun writing its story. One day, I simply walked away from home. I became homeless. By the age of 16, I was living on the streets, homeless, with nothing except one suitcase in my hand. No father, no mother, no relatives, and no home. Nobody. That was the real beginning of my Rahu journey.
Acharya listening to this, I don't even know what to say. Most people would have lost hope. What kept you going? Where did your strength come from?
Faith, only faith, nothing else. During that period, there were even certain members within my own family who were trying to destroy me through black magic. Yet, I'm still here. And because I survived those storms, today I can tell you something with complete conviction. Rahu cannot be defeated by rituals alone. Rahu cannot be conquered through fear. Rahu can only be overcome through awareness, through faith, through surrender. This is not philosophy for me, Mira. This is lived experience.
Acharya that changes everything. Because now I don't feel that I'm merely listening to an astrologer. I'm listening to someone who has actually walked through the fire.
Exactly, Mira. And that is why this conversation is not for everyone. This channel has never been about gathering millions of people. It has always been about reaching to those few beautiful souls who genuinely wish to understand life. If someone is only looking for quick remedies, they may become disappointed. But if someone is looking for inner transformation, then today's conversation may become one of the most important conversations of their life. Because over the next few minutes, I am not only going to speak about remedies, I am going to speak about something far deeper, the essence, the truth, the inner key. So let us begin our journey.
Acharya ji, listening to your journey, one thing became very clear to me. You didn't overcome Rahu because life became easier. You overcame Rahu because something inside you changed. So let me ask a question that many viewers may have right now. If someone is entering Rahu Mahadasha today, where should they begin? Should they first wear a gemstone, perform remedies, visit temples? Or is there something even more fundamental?
Beautiful question, Mira. And perhaps this is where most people make their biggest mistake. They immediately start looking outside. Which gemstone should I wear? Which yantra should I buy? Which ritual should I perform? Which temple should I visit? These things certainly have their place. But before all of them, there is one thing Rahu is asking you. Are you willing to transform yourself? Because understand one thing, my fellows, the solution is actually very simple, and this is precisely the problem. The solution is simple, but simple is not what people want to hear. People are fascinated by complicated remedies. If I tell someone to perform a difficult ritual costing thousands of rupees, many people will happily do it. But if I tell them, reduce your desires, control your mind, simplify your life, become more aware, suddenly it becomes difficult for them.
That's so true, Acharya ji. Sometimes we are willing to change everything except ourselves.
Exactly, Meera. I once explained this to Mohan. Mohan said, people may not want to listen, but I genuinely want to know. Please tell me the real solution. And I told him, Mohan, the solution is surprisingly simple. Curb your ambitions, curb unnecessary desires, slow down, stop running all the time, put consistent effort into controlling this monkey mind, live with awareness, and most importantly, turn inward. Because Rahu constantly pushes your attention outward. The real remedy pushes your attention inward.
Acharya ji, you also mentioned diet in your original teachings. Many people may wonder, what does food have to do with astrology? Can what we eat really influence how we experience Rahu Mahadasha?
It certainly can, Mira. And this is one of the most misunderstood aspects of spiritual life. Mohan asked me exactly the same question. He said, Acharyaji, what kind of diet should one follow during Rahu Mahadasha? And I told him, during Rahu Mahadasha, a person should gradually cultivate a Sattvic lifestyle. If possible, avoid onion, avoid garlic, reduce fried foods, reduce excessively spicy foods, reduce salty processed foods, eat food that calms the mind instead of exciting it.
Some people may immediately object. They might say, Acharya ji, millions of people eat onion and garlic. Why specifically avoid them during Rahu Mahadasha?
A very important question. First, understand something carefully. Onion and garlic are not evil, just as a sword is not evil. A pistol is not evil. The object itself is not the problem. The problem is who is using it. Imagine a sharp sword in the hands of an expert. It protects. And in the hands of a blind man, it becomes dangerous. Exactly the same principle applies here. During Rahu Mahadasha, many people tend to lose their clarity. Desires become stronger, impulses become stronger, restlessness increases, anger increases, greed increases, sexual cravings may become stronger, the mind becomes difficult to control. And when the mind is already unstable, certain foods can intensify that instability. That is why our ancient sages emphasized sattvic living during spiritually sensitive periods.
So the food itself is not the enemy. The question is, what is it doing to my consciousness?
Exactly, Mira. Always remember, food is not merely feeding your body. Food is shaping your thoughts. And your thoughts become your actions. Your actions become your habits. Your habits become your destiny. People spend large amounts of money changing their horoscope, and very few are willing to change what enters their plate every single day.
Acharya ji, can I ask something that many modern viewers may be wondering? Some people might say, how can controlling food or desires change planetary karma? What would you say to them?
I would say you have misunderstood astrology. Astrology is not merely about planets, it is about consciousness. Planets indicate tendencies, they do not remove your free will. Think of rain. If heavy rain is predicted, you cannot stop the rain, but you can carry an umbrella. You can drive carefully. You can postpone unnecessary travel. The weather remains the same. Your response changes. Similarly, Rahu creates certain psychological tendencies. Whether those tendencies become your master or your teacher depends upon your awareness.
That completely changes how one looks at astrology. Instead of becoming afraid, we become responsible.
Precisely, Rahu is asking you one simple question. Can you master your own mind? Because if you cannot, No ritual in the world will permanently save you. But if you begin mastering your own mind, even difficult karmas start losing their grip.
Acharya ji, if someone listening today remembers only one sentence from this entire section, what would you want that sentence to be?
Mira, I would simply say this. Don't spend 18 years trying to defeat Rahu. Spend 18 years allowing Rahu to transform you. Because Rahu is not merely testing your destiny, Rahu is revealing your attachments. And the day you begin reducing those attachments, the journey through Rahu Mahadasha becomes lighter. Not because Rahu has changed, but because you have changed.
That's profound. So perhaps the real beginning of every remedy is not outside, it begins within.
Exactly, Mira. And now that we have understood this foundation, let us move to something even more surprising. Because most people believe Rahu Mahadasha only brings suffering. That is not true. Sometimes Rahu gives huge success. But that huge success can become even more dangerous than failure. Let's understand why.
Acharya ji, you just said something that completely changed my perspective. Most of us believe Rahu Mahadasha is only about suffering. But you said sometimes Rahu gives extraordinary success. And that success can actually become more dangerous than failure. I don't think many people have ever heard astrology explained this way. Can you please explain?
Yes, Meera. And this is one of the greatest misunderstandings about Rahu. People think if I become rich during Rahu Mahadasha, if I become famous, if my business grows, then Rahu must be blessing me. Not necessarily. Remember one thing, everything that shines is not gold. Sometimes it is only glitter. And Rahu is the greatest master of glitter. Rahu has two completely different faces. The first face, Rahu gives misery, losses, failures, humiliation, rejection, loneliness, financial instability, broken relationships, confusion. This Rahu breaks you. It humbles you. It shatters your ego. It forces you to ask deeper questions. It compels you to grow. And believe me, Mira, this Rahu, although painful, is actually compassionate because it slowly awakens your soul.
That sounds almost impossible to accept. How can suffering ever become compassion? When someone loses a loved one, loses money, loses a relationship, how can they see compassion in that?
Mira, because suffering has a very strange quality. It breaks illusions. When everything in life is going perfectly, very few people ask, who am I? Very few people meditate. Very few people seek God. Very few people question their own ego. Success often puts people into spiritual sleep. Pain wakes them up. I know this from my own life. Had life remained comfortable, perhaps I would have never turned inward. Sometimes existence removes your outer support, only so that you may discover your inner support. That is why many enlightened masters awakened only after tremendous suffering.
So, sometimes what we call punishment is actually preparation.
Yes, Mira, beautifully said. Exactly. Sometimes life is not punishing you, life is preparing you. But now, let me tell you about the second phase of Rahu, and this one is far more dangerous.
Far more dangerous than suffering.
Yes, Mira, because the second Rahu does not make you cry, it makes you celebrate. It gives money, power, luxury, popularity, political influence, recognition, sexual attraction, material comforts, everything that the worldly mind desires from the outside. Everyone says, what a successful person. But, Mira, inwardly, something else is happening. Slowly, very slowly, ego begins replacing gratitude. Greed replaces contentment. Power replaces humility. Pleasure replaces awareness. The person becomes intoxicated not by alcohol but by success. And intoxication is intoxication, whether it comes through wine or through applause.
Acharya ji, that sentence deserves to be written down. One can become intoxicated by applause. I don't think people usually think of success as an addiction.
Exactly, Mira. People fear failure, very few fear success. Yet, success has destroyed far more people than failure. Failure usually makes a person introspect. Success often convinces a person that I know everything. That is the beginning of decline.
Can you give us a real example? Because I think many viewers will understand this more deeply through a real story.
Certainly, Mira. I remember a famous builder. For nearly 2 decades, his empire continued expanding. People admired him. His reputation grew. His influence increased. From the outside, everything appeared magnificent. Then Rahu showed its second face. Greed slowly entered. Misuse of investors' money began. Wrong decisions followed. Eventually, his entire empire collapsed. He was imprisoned. Think carefully. His downfall did not begin the day he entered prison. His downfall began much earlier. The day humility left him, prison was only the visible consequence. The real prison had already been created inside.
That is such a powerful distinction. So, the external collapse was actually the last chapter. The real collapse had already happened within.
Exactly, Mira. Remember this carefully. External events are often delayed reflections of internal states. People think karma suddenly appears. No, karma ripens slowly. First consciousness changes, then choices changes, then destiny changes.
Acharya ji, may I ask a slightly uncomfortable question?
Please, those are usually the best questions.
If Rahu gives fame, money, recognition, how does a person know whether this success is genuine or whether it is becoming an illusion? Because from the outside, both look exactly the same.
Wonderful question, Mira. Ask yourself five simple questions. Has success made me more humble or more arrogant? Has success increased my gratitude or my entitlement? Am I becoming more compassionate or more selfish? Do I still listen to wise advice or do I believe I already know everything? And finally, if all this disappeared tomorrow, would I still remain peaceful? If the answer to the last question is no, then success owns you. You do not own success, and that is Rahu's greatest illusion.
So, real freedom is not having success. Real freedom is not becoming dependent on success.
Exactly, Mira. Because attachment, not success, creates suffering. The world teaches us acquire more. The sages taught become free. These are two completely different directions, and Rahu continuously asks you which direction are you choosing.
Acharya ji, listening to you, I am beginning to understand something. Perhaps Rahu's greatest illusion is not failure. Perhaps it is making us believe that success itself is the destination. But then a question naturally arises. If Rahu can give someone tremendous wealth, fame, and power, what eventually breaks that illusion? Does it simply continue forever? Or does life eventually bring balance?
Life always brings balance. That is one of the greatest laws of existence. Nothing remains hidden forever. Nothing remains inflated forever. When a balloon expands beyond its natural capacity, nature itself bursts it. Exactly the same happens with human ego. Very often, when Rahu Mahadasha is followed by Jupiter Mahadasha, life begins asking for an account. Remember, Jupiter is not merely a planet of blessings. Jupiter is also the Guru, and a true Guru never allows ignorance to continue indefinitely. The lessons that Rahu postponed, Jupiter often begins to teach, sometimes gently, sometimes firmly. The very success that once intoxicated the person now begins slipping away. The same people who once applauded slowly disappear. The same doors that once opened effortlessly began closing. And suddenly, the person starts asking questions that he never asked during his years of glory.
So, Jupiter is not punishing the person, it is educating the person.
Beautifully said. Exactly. People often misunderstand karma. They imagine karma is revenge. No, karma is education. Existence is not interested in punishing you. Existence is interested in awakening you. And sometimes the greatest awakening comes only after the collapse of false identity.
Acharya ji, there is one sentence from your original teachings that has stayed with me. You said, people salute only the rising sun. Would you explain what you mean by that? Because I think every listener has experienced something similar in life.
Yes, Mira. Observe society carefully. When you are successful, people praise you. When you are powerful, people surround you. When your business is flourishing, everyone wants to know you. When your name appears in newspapers, suddenly everyone becomes your well wisher. But the day success leaves you, watch carefully. Many of those same people quietly disappear. Some even become your critics. Some who once applauded you may begin speaking against you. Then you realize something profound. Society often salutes the rising sun, not the setting sun. That is why I always tell my close followers, never measure your worth by the number of people standing beside you during success. Measure your life by those few souls who remain besides you when everything falls apart. Those are your real companions. Those are your real blessings.
That is such a powerful reminder. Perhaps Rahu doesn't only reveal our attachments, it also reveals the true nature of the people around us.
Absolutely, Mira. Rahu removes masks, sometimes your own, sometimes other people's. And although the process is painful, it is immensely liberating. Because after illusion breaks, truth becomes visible.
Acharya ji, earlier you mentioned two extraordinary transformations: Ratnakar becoming Saint Valmiki and Saul becoming Saint Paul. Why did you choose these two examples?
Because both remind us of one eternal truth. No human being is permanently lost. Ratnakar was once a feared robber. Violence was his profession. Ignorance was his way of living. Yet one moment of awakening, one meeting with wisdom, one complete inner transformation, and the same Ratnakar became the great Saint Valmiki, the immortal author of Ramayana. Think about that. Saint Valmiki is the author of Ramayana. Just think about that. The person changed, therefore destiny changed. Now consider Saul. He was once known for persecuting followers of Jesus Christ. Yet after a profound spiritual awakening, the same Saul became Saint Paul, one of history's greatest spiritual teachers. What changed? Not their horoscope, their consciousness. This is why I repeatedly tell people, never imprison yourself inside your past. Your past explains you, it does not define you.
So, Rahu never has the final word. Our consciousness does.
Exactly. And this is where people misunderstand astrology. Astrology should never make you feel imprisoned. It should make you more conscious. The birth chart shows tendencies. It never removes your ability to awaken.
Acharya ji, there is another line from your original teaching that struck me deeply. You said, Rahu's success is often fake gold. Would you explain that?
Gladly. Imagine someone searching for gold. In his excitement, he begins collecting glittering stones. They sparkle beautifully in sunlight. He proudly fills his bag. He believes he has become wealthy. Only later he discovers none of it was real. That is how Rahu often operates. It can give success without wisdom. It can give fame without humility. It can give money without peace. It can give luxury without contentment. It can give you pleasure without fulfillment. Everything shines beautifully, but inwardly the heart remains empty. That is why I say Rahu's success is often fake gold. And while collecting fake gold, many people completely miss the real gold. The real gold is inner peace. The real gold is awareness. The real gold is humility. The real gold is love. The real gold is surrender. If those are missing, then no amount of worldly achievement can make a person truly rich.
Acharya ji, that changes the entire definition of success. Perhaps success should not be measured by what we possess, but by what possesses us.
Beautifully said, Meera. If success possesses you, it becomes bondage. If awareness possesses you, success becomes a service. That is the difference.
Listening to all this, I am reminded of something. It almost feels as though failure has a hidden blessing that success sometimes does not. Would you agree?
Very much. And this reminds me of one of my favorite teachings by Bhagwan Raman Maharshi. Bhagwan Raman Maharshi beautifully says, success develops arrogance and the man's spiritual progress is thus arrested. Whereas failure opens the eyes of man to his limitations and prepares him to surrender himself. What an extraordinary wisdom is this! Most people spend their lives chasing success. Very few realize failure has silently been preparing them for God. The greatest blessing arrives wearing the clothes of disappointment.
Acharya ji, if someone listening today has recently lost money, a business, a relationship, or their reputation, what would you like to tell them?
I would tell them this: do not judge your life from one chapter. A chapter is not the entire book. Sometimes existence lovingly removes what no longer belongs in your life before placing something deeper into your hands. Remain patient, remain aware, remain humble, because if suffering has entered your life, perhaps wisdom is knocking at your door. And if tremendous success has entered your life, remain even more alert, for both success and failure are examinations. One tests your patience, the other tests your humility. Pass both, and Rahu loses its power over you.
Acharya ji, after listening to everything you've shared today, one thing has become crystal clear. The real battle during Rahu Mahadasha is not against Rahu, it is against our own unconsciousness.
Exactly, Meera. And once this is understood, we are ready to speak about the greatest protection available during Rahu Mahadasha. Not gemstones, not rituals, not fear, but something infinitely more powerful: faith. Because when everything outside begins shaking, only faith can keep the heart completely still. And that brings us to one of the most beautiful stories I have ever heard.
Acharya ji, everything you've shared so far has changed the way I look at Rahu Mahadasha. Initially, I thought Rahu was simply a difficult planetary period. Then I realized it is actually exposing our desires, our ego, our attachments, our unconsciousness. But now I have a question that I think every listener is silently asking. If Rahu shakes our entire life, what gives us the strength to remain standing? What is the greatest protection during Rahu Mahadasha?
That's a beautiful question, Meera. If someone remembers only one remedy from today's entire conversation, let it be this: faith is the highest remedy. Not fear, not superstition, not panic, faith. People often ask me, Acharya ji, which is the most powerful remedy during Rahu Mahadasha? My answer surprises them because they expect me to mention a gemstone, a ritual, a yantra, a complicated ceremony. Instead, I speak about something invisible: faith. Because understand this carefully: a person who has genuine faith walks differently, thinks differently, faces difficulties differently. Even suffering cannot break such a person easily.
Acharya ji, what exactly do you mean by faith? Because many people use this word, but everyone seems to define it differently.
That is a wonderful question. Faith is not believing that life will always go according to our plans. Faith is believing that even when life does not go according to our plans, existence still knows what it is doing. Faith is not demanding answers for every event. Faith is relaxing into the intelligence of existence. Faith is saying, I may not understand today's pain, but I trust that one day its purpose will become clear. That is faith.
So, faith is not certainty, faith is trust.
Exactly. Certainty belongs to the mind. Trust belongs to the heart. And Rahu attacks the mind. Therefore, the heart must become stronger than the mind.
Acharya ji, many listeners have a guru. Some are devoted to Sai Baba. Some follow Lord Shiva. Some Krishna. Some Devi. Does it matter whom we worship during Rahu Mahadasha?
The form is not the most important thing, Meera. The depth of your devotion is. If someone truly loves Sai Baba, if Sai Baba is his or her guru, he need not spend his entire life searching for another guru. Weak devotion is always searching. Strong devotion is always deepening. People often ask, who is Sai Baba's successor? I smile. This question itself arises from misunderstanding spirituality. The idea of successor belongs to royal families. Kings have successors, empires have successors, but truth cannot be inherited. A true master cannot be replaced. A true master lives forever in the consciousness of the disciple. I repeat, a true master lives forever in the consciousness of the disciple. Therefore, if your heart has genuinely accepted a guru, stop wandering, go deeper. The well that gives water does not need to be abandoned because someone else promises a larger well. Dig deeper.
Acharya ji, that reminds me of something. Today, there are so many teachers, so many social media gurus, so many spiritual influencers. How does someone know whether they are simply collecting teachers or actually walking the path?
That is becoming one of the biggest spiritual diseases of our time. People collect gurus like they collect mobile applications. One today, another next month, a third next year. But spirituality is not shopping, it is surrender. You do not grow by constantly changing masters. You grow by allowing one teaching to transform your life completely. A disciple is not one who has met many masters. A disciple is one who has allowed truth to enter his heart.
Acharya ji, may I ask something personal? During the darkest moments of your own Rahu Mahadasha, did your faith ever shake? Were there moments when you questioned God?
Of course, I am a human being. There were nights of uncertainty, moments of loneliness, days when I did not know where life was taking me. But there is a beautiful difference. My questions never became accusations, they remained prayers. There is a tremendous difference between asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" The first question creates suffering, the second question creates wisdom.
That is profound. The event may be the same, but the question changes everything.
Exactly. The event is often beyond our control. The quality of your question is always within your control. And that quality determines whether suffering becomes bitterness or awakening.
Acharya ji, many people listening today may still be thinking, it is easy to speak about faith, but when everything around me is collapsing, how do I actually trust?
That question reminds me of one of the most beautiful stories I have ever heard. Whenever someone asks me, "What does real faith look like?" I don't begin with philosophy. I tell this story. A young man had just been married. He and his wife were returning home to reach their destination. They had to cross a beautiful lake in a small wooden boat. The weather was peaceful, the sky was clear, everything appeared perfectly calm. Suddenly, without warning, dark clouds gathered. Powerful winds began blowing. Within moments, the peaceful lake transformed into a violent storm. The little wooden boat was tossed from one side to the other. The waves became enormous. Water began entering the boat. Every passenger panicked. Some cried, some prayed loudly, some believed those were the final moments of their lives. The young bride looked at her husband. To her surprise, he was sitting absolutely still. No panic, no fear, no anxiety, almost as though the storm did not exist. She looked at him in disbelief. and finally asked, how can you remain so calm when we may die at any moment?
Acharya ji, if I were sitting in that boat, I think I would have asked exactly the same question.
The young bride looked at her husband in complete disbelief. The storm had become even more violent. The little boat was being tossed from one side to another. Every passing moment made death seem more certain. Yet her husband remained completely still. Not because he was unaware of the storm, but because something within him was deeper than the storm. Finally, she could not control herself any longer. She asked, are you not afraid? This may be our last moment. We may drown. How can you sit here so peacefully? Are you made of stone? The husband looked at her and smiled. Not because he was careless, not because he was pretending to be brave, but because he had discovered something she had not yet discovered. Slowly, he reached beside him and drew out his sword.
A sword? At a time like that?
Yes, he slowly removed the sword from its sheath. The sharp blade reflected the flashes of lightning. Then, very gently, he brought the naked sword close to his wife's neck. So close that only the smallest distance remained.
I can almost imagine the scene. What did she do? Did she become frightened?
Surprisingly, she smiled. The husband asked, are you afraid? She laughed gently and replied, why should I be afraid? The sword is in your hands. I know you love me. You would never intentionally hurt me. The husband quietly placed the sword back into its sheath. Then he looked into her eyes and said, this is my answer.
What a beautiful answer.
He continued and he said, I know God loves me and this storm is in His hands. If we survive, good. If we do not survive, that too is good. Because everything is in His hands and He cannot do anything wrong. My fellows, this is faith. Not believing that storms will never come, but trusting the one who holds the storm.
Acharya ji, I think this story changes the meaning of faith completely. Most of us pray so that the storm disappears. But this man trusted God even while the storm continued.
Exactly, Mira. That is the difference between bargaining and surrender. Most prayers are negotiations. God, if you solve my problem, then I will believe in you. That is not faith, that is a business transaction. Real faith says, I trust you, even when I cannot understand you. That is surrender.
Acharya ji, can someone really develop that kind of trust? Because honestly, when difficulties enter our lives, fear takes over so quickly.
Fear is natural. Remaining imprisoned by fear is a choice. Remember something very carefully. Fear will always knock on your door. The question is, who will answer? Fear or awareness? Fear imagines tomorrow. Faith lives today. Fear keeps asking, what if everything goes wrong? Faith quietly whispers, what if everything is unfolding exactly as it should? One sentence creates anxiety, the other creates peace.
Acharya ji, that is such a different way of looking at life. So the battle isn't really outside, it is between fear and faith inside us.
Precisely. And therefore, I always tell my close followers never allow fear to become the force behind your decisions. Because every decision born from fear eventually creates regret. A decision born from awareness creates growth. Remember this beautiful line. Fear should never move you, only love should move you. Pause for a moment and let that sink into your heart. How many decisions have we made simply because we were afraid? We stayed in unhealthy relationships out of fear. We remained in jobs that destroyed our peace out of fear. We refused to forgive out of fear. We refuse to surrender out of fear. Fear has silently ruled countless lives, and Rahu feeds upon fear. The more frightened you become, the stronger Rahu appears.
So if Rahu feeds on fear, what weakens Rahu?
Love, awareness, forgiveness, surrender, and above all, the willingness to let go. Only love is the answer. Only forgiveness is the answer. Only letting go is the answer. If you truly understand these words, Rahu Mahadasha slowly transforms from a punishment into a blessing in disguise.
Acharya ji, may I ask something that many modern viewers may be thinking? Sometimes people hear words like forgiveness or letting go and they immediately say, that sounds idealistic. Real life is different. What would you say to them?
I heard something similarly just yesterday. A highly educated gentleman told me, Acharya ji, the idea of letting go, modern people invented it for their own convenience. I smiled. Education does not necessarily make a person wise. Degrees are not wisdom. Information is not transformation. So I asked him, do you think Lao Tzu belongs to the modern world? Because Lao Tzu said, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Thousands of years ago, and Gautam Buddha also said, in the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. Notice something remarkable. Different masters, different cultures, different centuries, yet the same truth. Why? Because truth never becomes outdated.
That is beautiful. It seems every great master eventually points us in the same direction toward less attachment, more awareness, more surrender.
Exactly. And now we are arriving at the very heart of Rahu Mahadasha. Because if I had to describe Rahu in just a few words, I would say this: Rahu makes you cling, Rahu makes you attach, Rahu makes you restless, Rahu constantly pushes your attention outward. It whispers, just one more achievement, just one more relationship, just one more possession, just one more success. But peace never comes through one more. Peace begins when the search itself becomes silent. And that is why the real antidote to Rahu is Ketu like detachment, the Buddha state, turning inward. That is where our journey now takes us. Because once faith has entered the heart, the next step is learning how to let go.
Acharya ji, throughout today's conversation, one sentence has stayed with me. You said, Rahu constantly pushes our attention outward, but the real remedy is turning inward. I feel this is much deeper than it first appears. Could you explain what turning inward actually means? Because many people hear these words, but very few truly understand them.
Beautiful question, Meera. In fact, this is the heart of today's entire conversation. Everything we have discussed until now, faith, detachment, awareness, forgiveness, surrender, all of them point in one direction, within. Rahu has only one strategy. It wants your attention to remain outside. Outside success, outside approval, outside relationships, outside possessions, outside comparisons, outside achievements. It continuously whispers just a little more. One more promotion, one more relationship, one more luxury, one more achievement. But notice something. Even after getting all these things, the mind still says just one more. Because Rahu never says enough. That is why I always say the true remedy of Rahu is not found outside, it is found inside.
Acharya ji, that almost sounds like two completely opposite directions. One force pulling us outward, and another inviting us inward.
Exactly, Mira. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One road leads deeper into desire, the other leads deeper into awareness. Every day, through every decision, we are choosing one of these roads. Most people believe spirituality begins inside a temple. I disagree. Spirituality begins the moment you become aware of your own mind. When you observe your thought without becoming them, when you observe your desires without blindly obeying them, when you observe your anger without allowing it to control your actions, that is turning inward.
Acharya ji, can someone turn inward while living a normal family life? Or is this path only for monks and renunciates?
A very important question. No. Turning inward has nothing to do with leaving your family. It has everything to do with leaving your unconsciousness. You may live in a forest and still remain deeply attached. You may live in the middle of a busy city and yet remain inwardly peaceful. Turning inward is not changing your address, it is changing your awareness.
That completely changes the meaning of spirituality.
Exactly. The sages never asked everyone to renounce the world. They asked us to renounce unconscious attachment. There is a tremendous difference.
Acharya ji, earlier you mentioned Guru. May I ask something? People often wonder what is the greatest offering we can make to our Guru? Is it seva, donations, rituals? What truly pleases a master?
Mira, I am so glad you asked that because this is one of the most misunderstood aspects of spirituality. People think they honor their guru by offering money, gold, flowers, expensive gifts, beautiful rituals. All these have their place. But understand something. What can a disciple possibly give to one who has realized truth? It is like a beggar trying to gift a king. The Guru does not need your possessions. The Guru wants something infinitely more valuable. He wants your awakening. The greatest gift you can offer your Guru is turning inward. Because that is why the Guru came into your life. Not to collect followers, not to collect donations, but to awaken consciousness.
That is so beautiful. So perhaps every time we meditate sincerely, we are offering something to our Guru.
Precisely, every moment of awareness is Guru Dakshina. Every moment of genuine transformation is Guru Dakshina. Every attachment you release is Guru Dakshina. That is what the true master truly celebrates.
Acharya ji, why do human beings find it so difficult to let go? Even when we know something is hurting us, we continue holding on. Why?
Because Rahu creates attachment and attachment creates suffering. Gautam Buddha expressed this truth so beautifully. He said, attachment is the root of suffering. Reflect upon these words. Every major sorrow in life can usually be traced back to some form of attachment. Attachment to people, attachment to opinions, attachment to identity, attachment to wealth, attachment to success, attachment to the past, attachment to the future. The moment attachment becomes excessive, suffering quietly enters. That is why I encourage everyone listening today. Ask yourself, how attached I am? How greedy am I? How restless am I? How much am I clinging to things that life may already be asking me to release? These questions are not meant to make you feel guilty, they are meant to make you conscious because awareness itself begins healing.
Acharya ji, listening to Buddha's words, it seems Rahu strengthens attachment. Then what weakens Rahu?
Ketu, not merely the planet, the state of consciousness that Ketu represents. Detachment, acceptance, inner silence, freedom, the Buddha state. That is why I often say the real antidote to Rahu is becoming a little more like Ketu, not indifferent, not emotionally cold, but inwardly free, to love deeply without becoming imprisoned, to work sincerely without becoming obsessed with results, to enjoy life without becoming dependent upon it. That is freedom.
Acharya ji, can you share a real example of what this freedom looks like? Sometimes stories help us understand better than philosophy.
Certainly, there is a beautiful real life incident shared by Paramahansa Yogananda. He once said, "When I was living in India, I owned a motorcycle. I loved riding it, especially whenever I traveled to visit my beloved master. One day, he asked his guru, Sri Yukteswar Giri, Master, am I attached to my motorcycle? His guru smiled and replied, No, you are not attached. Sometime later, Yogananda met someone who deeply wished to own that motorcycle. Without hesitation, he gave it away completely, freely, joyfully, and afterwards, he never missed it. Not for a single moment. That is freedom. Notice carefully. He did not give it away because he hated it. He gave it away because it no longer possessed him. There is a profound difference. Most people think they own their possessions. Very often, their possessions own them.
What a beautiful story. So, real freedom is not refusing to enjoy something. Real freedom is remaining peaceful even when it is no longer with us.
Exactly, Mira. That is true yoga. That is what Maharshi Patanjali wanted humanity to discover, to become the ruler of your own consciousness, not its servant. When your mind says, I cannot live without this, pause, observe, smile, because that very sentence tells you where your bondage lies. And wherever there is bondage, Rahu quietly smiles. Wherever there is awareness, Rahu slowly loses its grip. That is the beginning of liberation.
Acharya as we've journeyed through today's conversation, I feel every teaching has been leading us toward one destination: faith, awareness, detachment, turning inward. It almost feels as though they are all different rivers flowing toward the same ocean. If you had to leave our listeners with just one golden key to walk through Rahu Mahadasha, what would that key be?
Beautifully observed, Mira. Yes, every spiritual path eventually meets at one point. And if I had to express the greatest remedy for Rahu Mahadasha in just one word, it would be this: surrender, not defeat, not helplessness, not giving up, surrender. Unfortunately, many people misunderstand this word. They think surrender means becoming weak. I see it very differently. Surrender is the highest expression of inner strength, because only a courageous heart can say, I do not need to control everything. I trust the intelligence of existence. I will give my best and I will peacefully accept whatever unfolds. That is surrender.
Acharya I think many people struggle with that. We constantly want to know what will happen tomorrow? When will my problems end? When will I get married? When will I become successful? When will this Mahadasha finish? Why is it so difficult for us to surrender?
Because the ego survives on control. The ego believes if I can predict everything, control everything, understand everything, then I will be safe. But life never works that way. Life is a mystery, and mystery can never be controlled. It can only be trusted. That is why surrender is not an action, it is a state of consciousness.
So, surrender is not escaping responsibility, it is letting go of unnecessary resistance.
Exactly, Mira. A surrendered person still works hard, still fulfills responsibilities, still loves deeply, still serves sincerely, but inwardly he is relaxed. He is no longer fighting existence. He walks with life instead of constantly trying to force life.
Acharya earlier you mentioned a beautiful word, Saburi. Many people have heard Sai Baba use this word. But what does it truly mean?
Sai Baba gave humanity two priceless treasures, Shraddha, meaning faith, and Saburi, meaning patience. Notice how beautifully they complement one another. Faith tells you, God has not abandoned me. Patience tells you, His timing is perfect. Most people possess faith for 2 days, then they become impatient. They pray for a week, then they complain. They meditate for a month, then they ask, why has nothing changed? Transformation does not happen like instant coffee. Consciousness blossoms slowly, like a flower, like the sunrise, like a child growing in the mother's womb. Everything beautiful in existence takes time. Therefore, never lose saburi, patience.
That reminds me of something you often say. The journey is not about reaching quickly, it is about ripening.
Exactly, Mira. The impatient mind always wants results. The surrendered heart enjoys the journey. And that is why Rahu Mahadasha becomes unbearable for impatient people, but deeply transformative for patient seekers.
Acharya many listeners ask us practical questions. If I want to begin today, what should I actually do every morning? Could you give them a simple daily spiritual practice?
Certainly, never underestimate the power of sincere daily practice. During Rahu Mahadasha, meditate every day. Even if only for a short while, sit quietly, watch your breath, observe your thoughts, allow the mind to settle naturally. Meditation is not forcing silence. Meditation is relaxing into silence. Meditation is a surrender. It is saying to existence, for those few moments, I stop running. And along with meditation, I strongly recommend chanting one mantra that has touched my own heart deeply is Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Repeat it with devotion 108 times, morning and evening, or chant continuously for at least 20 minutes, not mechanically, not like a machine, but with love. Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Allow every repetition to soften the heart. Allow every repetition to dissolve fear. Allow every repetition to remind you that you are never alone.
Acharya some people may wonder, is chanting simply repeating words or is something deeper happening?
A very important question you have asked. Chanting is much more than sound. Words alone do not transform consciousness. Presence does. When the mind, the heart, and the mantra become one, something extraordinary begins happening. The subconscious slowly becomes purified. Old impressions begin dissolving. Restlessness becomes quieter. Fear gradually loses its grip. This is why so many spiritual traditions place such importance on the divine name. Not because God needs to hear it, because we need to hear it again and again until the mind becomes still. Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
That is beautiful. The mantra is not changing God, it is changing us.
Precisely. And that is why even ISKCON beautifully teaches that because of material bondage, human beings struggle to understand what is truly spiritual. But through sincere chanting of the holy name, that ignorance slowly begins to dissolve. The name becomes a bridge from restlessness to remembrance, from fear to faith, from the ego to the heart.
Acharya ji, listening to you today, I feel every practice you've shared has one common purpose, not to impress God, but to transform ourselves.
Exactly, Mira. Spiritual practice is never performance, it is purification. It is not about proving your devotion to others, it is about allowing your own heart to become transparent. Because the moment the heart becomes pure, grace begins flowing naturally. And when grace begins flowing, even the Rahu cannot stop your inner journey.
Acharya ji, listening to everything you've shared today, one thought keeps returning to my mind. Many people chant for years. Some perform rituals every single day. Yet they still say, I don't feel peace. I don't feel close to God. Why does that happen?
That is a very profound question, Mira. Because chanting is not merely the movement of the tongue, it is the movement of the heart. You may repeat God's name thousands of times, but if your heart remains filled with ego, greed, hatred, jealousy, the transformation will be very limited. This reminds me of a beautiful teaching by Radhanath Swami. He says, our humble service attitude determines what effect chanting will have on our consciousness. Otherwise, we may chant for millions of births and still not attain the goal. Just pause and reflect upon that. It is not merely the number of mantras, it is the quality of the heart with which they are offered.
That changes everything. So the real question is not how much did I chant, but what kind of person am I becoming through my chanting?
Exactly, Mira. Every genuine spiritual practice should make you a little kinder, a little humbler, a little more forgiving, a little more compassionate. If your chanting is increasing your ego, something has gone wrong. Because the divine name is meant to dissolve the ego, not decorate it.
Acharya ji, you often speak about selfless service. What role does service play during Rahu Mahadasha?
A very important one. Always remember, never cheat people, never exploit anyone, never take advantage of someone's helplessness, Never ask for free. If you are capable of paying, never ask for free. And serve those who truly deserve your help. Why? Because selfless service purifies the heart, and a purified heart receives grace much more easily than a selfish one. The more you serve without expecting recognition, without expecting appreciation, without expecting anything in return, the more your consciousness expands. This is why I say service is not charity, service is spiritual practice.
So, even helping another person can become meditation?
Certainly, Mira, if it is done with love, if it is done without ego, every act performed with awareness becomes worship. Whether you are feeding someone, teaching someone, listening to someone, or simply offering kindness, it becomes an offering to the existence. Remember, God is not impressed by the size of the act, He responds to the purity of the intention.
Acharya ji, looking back at everything we've discussed today, it almost feels as though Rahu Mahadasha is inviting us to move in the exact opposite direction from the one the world encourages. The world says collect more, and you are saying become lighter.
Beautifully observed. Yes, Mira. The world teaches accumulation. The sages teach transformation. The world says become somebody. The master says discover who you already are. The world tells you to compete. The guru teaches you to become conscious. That is why I repeatedly remind everyone the real growth is the growth within. The real journey is the journey within. Everything else will eventually pass. Money will pass. Reputation will pass. Relationships will change. The body itself will one day be left behind. Only consciousness continues. Therefore, invest in that which cannot be taken away from you.
Acharya ji, before we conclude today's conversation, may I ask one final question? Many of our listeners have been writing to us about your upcoming book. Its title itself has created so much curiosity. The Hidden Astrology of Fame, Reputation, and Perception. Why did you decide to write this book?
Thank you, Mira, for asking that. This book is very close to my heart. For years, I have observed something fascinating. Two people may possess equal intelligence, equal qualifications, equal hard work, yet one naturally becomes respected, trusted, recognized, while the other struggles to receive the same appreciation. Why does this happen? The answer lies in one of the most profound principles of Vedic astrology, Arudha Lagna. Unfortunately, it is also one of the most misunderstood subjects. Most people understand the ascendant, very few truly understand the image that the world carries about them. Arudha Lagna does not merely describe who you are, it reveals how society sees you, how your reputation is built, how your public image develops, why some people naturally attract trust, recognition, influence, authority, and why others remain unnoticed despite possessing remarkable ability. In this book, I have tried to explain these timeless principles in a practical, simple, and spiritually meaningful manner. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a content creator, a student, an artist, or someone simply trying to understand your public image, I believe this book will help you look at life from an entirely new perspective. And I am delighted to share with everyone listening today that if everything goes according to the plan, the Hidden Astrology of Fame, Reputation and Perception book should be available by 21st July across Amazon worldwide, so readers from different parts of the world will be able to access it.
That sounds absolutely fascinating, Acharya ji. I have a feeling many people don't yet realize how important Arudh Lagna is in understanding career, public image, relationships, trust, recognition, and even success. I'm genuinely looking forward to reading it myself. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for spending this beautiful time with us. I hope today's conversation has helped you see Rahu Mahadasha in a completely different light. In one of our upcoming episodes, Acharya ji and I will have a dedicated conversation on the hidden astrology of fame, reputation, and perception. We'll explore what Arudh Lagna really is, why it influences the way the world perceives us, and how understanding it can help us make wiser decisions in our personal life, career, relationships, and spiritual journey. Until then, stay aware, stay grateful, keep turning inward, and remember the greatest transformation never begins outside, it begins within. Namaste.
Namaste Mira. Jai Sri Ganesha. Jai Guru.
ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः।